Thank you so much, and it is just an important initiative to continue to come out and have these real conversations. I know that based on the pace that I am moving, that many of you will find it challenging to understand that this is only the second day. Only the second day. And it just goes to show you the pace that we're going to be moving. Far too long, policymakers have not understood the urgency of the moment. I do, because I spent my life hearing about how we have failed and abandoned so many New Yorkers who I believe were considered the voiceless. But since one of their own became the mayor of the city of New York, they now have a voice. And that voice is going to be loud and clear. And nothing is more significant than the voices of those who have lost their loved ones to guns and senseless violence. Day two, no matter what crises I'm dealing with, I made a commitment to sit down with the families of those who lost loved ones to violence. That was important to me. That was a promise I made, and it was a promise I kept. There's a lot of conversation in the city about those who don't believe these families want proper policing. Justice and public safety go together. And I don't subscribe to the belief of some that we can only have justice and not public safety. We will have them both. Our police officers will be responsible. They will understand how to properly police our city, but we will also send a loud and clear message. You will not bring violence to this city. That is not going to continue to happen in the city of New York. The stories of these victims are heart-wrenching. Watching your son shot next to you because of a parking dispute, losing two sons to gun violence, walking down the street and standing next to your daughter and becoming a victim of a shooting, or watching someone shooting at a pregnant woman and you get hit by the bullet, and then the person that saves your life later is shot and killed a year or so later. These stories can't continue. And it can't continue because the police commissioner and I and the team at NYPD, we're going to have a coordinated effort of a conversation that I stated over and over on the campaign trail. Intervention, prevention. Prevention, we will stop the fetus of crime with the partnership of David Banks, early identification of learning disabilities, dyslexia, helping foster care children so they don't age out of foster care just to go without support and create criminal actions or become the victims to crime. Making sure that we partner with crisis management teams, but also with victims of violence. But then intervention, hitting the streets right now, because we can't wait 3 years to stop the violence that we're seeing in our city. And I'm not going to allow the conversation that proper policing is an infringement on the rights of people. It is not. And so our intervention is immediately having a plainclothes anti-gun unit to do precision policing, going after gangs, taking down gang unit violence and gangs crews that is creating this violence, targeting them, stopping the flow of guns in our city. That is the partnership that I talked about on the campaign trail, and months ago it was finally put together with the Joint Gang Task Force that is meeting now to talk about coordinated effort on the federal, state, city level, ATF, the district attorney's office, the federal Department of Justice, everyone coming together the same way we did with terrorism. We stopped terrorism in this country and in this city because we had a concerted effort and worked as a unit and a team Why haven't we done that with gun violence? Because the victims of gun violence across this country are black, brown, and poor. That's why. There was no urgency. There was no urgency to say this can't happen in our country. You want real terrorism? It's the terror that's happening in Chicago, Atlanta, and New York, and the Bronx. All over this country, we're seeing terror that was ignored. Well, that process of ignorance stops on January 1st, because I recognize people should not live in fear. And that is why we're going to look at the fact that here in this city, shootings in 2021 rose above record highs in 2020. The police stats indicate we had over 1,800 shootings, victims last year, 104% jump from 2020. Now remember, those are shooting victims. How many times were guns shot and no one was struck? They were potential victims. We must turn this around, and we will turn this around. That is why we're here today, to hear from these victims and allow them to share their stories, but to allow the police commissioner to hear directly from them as well. It's about hearing from those who are impacted. And we walked away with some great ideas, like instituting and using MOCJ and other agencies to have proper funding for the victims. We have right funding for the crisis management teams, but no one talks about the victims, to give them the counseling, the support, to help with relocation, with housing, and give them the proper resources that are available. We are going to do that. And also something simple, as the police commissioner learned. Some of these victims are not hearing on a regular basis the updates on what happens to their loved ones that were shot. How is the investigation moving forward? Can you imagine losing a loved one and not hearing an update on, is the investigation continuing to go forward? Was an apprehension made? So we want to end the silence and stop looking at victims as numbers, but to look at them as human beings and understand that that pain is real, and be a more compassionate, more caring, more kind city. A word that I use all the time. We have to be more emotionally intelligent, not only to identify what we're feeling, but what they're feeling. And that's what I want to do as mayor. We're going to have a series of these conversations throughout the city, one in each borough. A.T. Mitchell and Man Up in Brooklyn. We're going to go over to Queensbridge with Kay Bain and sit down with his coalition. We're going to do it in the Bronx as well. We're going to go out to Staten Island and meet with some of the leaders out there. And then we're going to come together with a comprehensive approach based on those conversations of these men and women who have been on the ground. But the days of leaving out the victims are over. We are now going to include the victims in these conversations so that they know that they matter. They matter to me, and they matter to the people of this city. And so I want the police commissioner to give her an opportunity to speak with you, and then we will allow our assemblywomen, our amazing assemblywomen here from the village of Harlem to have a few comments, and then we will turn it over to an amazing warrior for victims, my good friend Jackie Rowe Adams. You know, no, we're not related. I wish we were, but we'll take it anyway. So to the police commissioner of the city of New York, Keyshawn Sewell.
So, as I always say, I'll be brief. I took a lot of notes, so you'll have to bear with me as I try to read my handwriting. I cannot thank these people, these women, these men that took the time out of their day to come talk to us so we could listen to their stories. Over the last hour, we had the distinct honor of meeting each and every one of them, and I hear you. And as I told you during that hour, this is not the last time we will speak or meet. So please know that your stories are very impactful, and you are not numbers, you are people. Listening to their stories, again, I have to tell you, it's my mission, along with the mayor, to never stop working to rid our streets of illegal guns. As your police department, we play a central role in this, but as we stated to them, we cannot do this alone, and they know it as well. We need the help of the communities. We need the partnerships that we have with federal, local agencies to help us get a handle on this crime. Together, we will keep the people of this city safe. We will hold anyone who threatens safety accountable, and we will make sure we remember the victims, the survivors who are left behind. We will not tolerate gun violence in this city. That cannot be overstated. We are tackling this head on. My focus and intentions are clear. Seize the guns, stop the violence, stop the shooting, and save lives. And together we can do that. And it was my honor to be with you here today. And thank you all for coming.
Good afternoon. I want to first thank Mayor Eric Adams for having the forethought and the will to want to meet with mothers and fathers who have been subjected to the worst horrors of war. War in our communities, losing their children, losing loved ones. You know, they have suffered more than you can imagine to bury a child.
That's right.
You can't believe the feeling that the heart breaks, that you feel like your heart's been torn from your body.
That's right.
And this mayor made this a priority to meet with families that have suffered this loss, to see what can be done, to see that they are not forgotten, that they get the resources necessary to help other families. And at the same time, he also wants to put together a program to see what's going on with those that are committing the violence, to see where we need to start with them. And we have all kinds of programs, but in truth, they have not worked. So today we're coming together to start a think tank with Lloyd Williams and Jackie Rowe and the mothers to come up with a thought, a think tank of what can we do, what do we need to do to address both issues. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing it. And Jackie Rowe, thank you. And of course to the commissioner, I thank you. I'm very proud of you. I know you're going to have a hell of a job navigating these Amazon rivers of this great city. But I believe you can handle it. And I want to tell you, Mr. Caban, that we don't want to do away with the police force. See, we want to have a police force that we can work with, that we trust and they trust us, that we don't think that they're going to abuse us or our children when they're arrested, but at the same time, do your job. So please don't ever think that this group is against you, because this is the foundation of a group that supports the NYPD to see to it that they will be able to continue to do their job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, our Assemblywoman Inez Dickens. So let me first say, Jackie Rowe Adams, co-founder of Harlem Mothers Save, Harlem Mothers and Fathers Save. Mother who lost 2 kids to gun violence. But after losing my 2 kids, I decided to not lay down, but get up and make sure that I help another mother, another family for feeling the pain and hurt that I have felt. Let me go to 2006. 2006, I love to tell the story because, it's emotional because he is the mayor. 2006, 5 mothers cried for help, saying, who's giving our kids these guns? We went to, at that time, Assemblyman Keith Wright. He said, I'm going to call the 100 black law enforcement. Eric Adams. He was the sergeant at that time. We called and stood on the steps of City Hall 2006 and called the question, who is giving our kids these guns. So he ain't just start this fight. He been doing this fight since 2006. And I'm telling you, I am proud to stand here today with our very own Mayor Eric Adams from fighting this gun violence issue. And he is true to his word. He have our commissioner here. She is ready and willing. And I want you to know, Harlem mothers and fathers say we stand with her, with NYPD. These mothers and fathers over here saying it's enough is enough. Anytime our mayor could go down to the bus station, and I was talking to one of the media earlier and saying, our mayor ain't playing. They're going to stop killing each other. And as we stand here tonight, somebody probably getting killed or shot. Right now. So this is a serious situation. We got our mayor back. We have NYPD back. We working with organizations such as Harlem Chamber of Commerce, Harlem Week, Lloyd Williams, our Assemblywoman, and NYPD have the best inspectors and chiefs, and we right with them. But if they act up, we gonna get with them. But in the meantime, they need us, and I want the media to know. Please put this message out there. We are not going to tolerate our police being abused and our community being abused by police. We're going to work together. They cannot do it by themselves. They need us to make sure that if we see it, say it. Don't start talking about snitching. It's not snitching, it's saving a life. So if we see something, what we gonna do? If we see something, what we gonna do? Yes, we are. And our mayor, this is his first, and I love saying that. Our mayor, second day, is spent in Harlem talking about gun violence, and he's going to take it on the road. God bless him. God bless America. God bless our commissioner and our first step. Thank you.
You know, Ali had a hype man. Thank you. We'll do on topics, right?
Start right here, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, hi. Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
And the Commissioner. In many ways, the landscape for policing has changed a lot over the last 8 years. There's been laws at multiple levels. There's a federal monitor overseeing the NYPD on stop and frisk. The Right to Know Act, which makes cops have to, changes the way they interact with people they're going to search. They've decriminalized a lot of quality of life offenses that used to serve as pretexts for, talking to people. Qualified immunity. There's been a whole host of changes that in a way would make your jobs different from what they were, say, even 8 years ago. So what I want to know is and then we've got prosecutors who say that they don't necessarily want to prosecute all of these crimes. So how do you deal with this new landscape of law enforcement, given this whole, given the crisis on the streets? So basically, how do you respond to that?
Two things, and your observation is accurate. That's number one. We have a series of changes that's happening on the legislative level, in the city council, and even among prosecutors. So there's layers to correct and to operate within that environment. Number one, the NYPD, they have put together a joint gun task force that's made up of prosecutors, law enforcement on the state, federal, city level, and district attorneys. They're coming together, what I believe, for the first time as a team. This is what I talked about on the campaign trail. I'm happy that Commissioner Shea heard me and started this several months ago. So now everyone is in the same room, and they're talking about how do we use the RICO laws? How do we use the federal prosecution, which is different from the state prosecution, where you can get longer jail time? How do we start identifying the shooters? You're seeing for the first time a team that's coming together. And I'm glad that it was put together months before I took office, so now I can just continue to enhance that, stop the flow of ghost guns. Now we're going to start identifying those dealers. It's just a small number of dealers that are bringing guns into these cities, and there's a small number of people that are doing the shootings. So now you're seeing for the first time a real information sharing. We have to operate in some of the laws. Some of the laws I disagree with, but I cannot whine about, I'm upset with what they're doing in Albany on the city council. I need to look at what laws are in place, and the commissioner must do that, and we have to operate within them. So we have to adjust our practice, our approach, and our methods based on what the legislators do. Their job is to pass laws. Our job is to police within those laws. We cannot dictate to them, and they cannot dictate to us once we understand the application of those laws. I believe the success here is that there's finally a team together, DAs, law enforcement, the prosecutors, all coming together, identifying the shooters, the gangs, and taking down those crews, and you're going to see the result of that.
Mayor,
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about the anti-crime unit and sort of what you can tell us about what your plans are. The unit was taken out of commission. What does the plan look like to bring it back? Should New Yorkers expect to see these units back on the street again? Have you come up with a plan about how to do that? I know you've said you don't want the same old unit to be brought back, a unit that was severely criticized throughout several years for a number of incidents that took the lives of New Yorkers. So how and when are you going to do it, and what is it going to look like?
Well, on the campaign trail, I had to answer all of those questions. But now I have a police commissioner. And so what I'm going to do, Gloria, I gave the police commissioner my concept of having a very important tool in policing. Policing is predictable and unpredictable. Those who are the theory makers, they are looking at policing outside. Policing must be predictable and unpredictable. The plainclothes unit is the unpredictable aspect of it. The blue and white, that's omnipresence. We want that. It gives us a comfort of safety. We took away the unpredictable aspect of policing, and that was dangerous. And so we're going to bring the unpredictable aspect of policing back. And I know how to do it right because I fought against what was being done wrong. I'm just really amazed how many people attempted to rewrite my legacy. I was the leading voice, if not one of the only voices in the city that talked about the over-aggressive abuse of what was called street crime unit when Amadou Diallo was shot at. I mean, let's go to the videotape. What happened in this city that all of a sudden people don't know who I am? I have a legacy of fighting against the abuses that you're talking about. But 9 million New Yorkers, 20 million opinions. And it's unfortunate that the loudest voices have basically hijacked the entire conversation. Every New Yorker is not saying they don't want a plainclothes unit to go after people who are committing guns. And it's just wrong to keep saying that this is what all New Yorkers are saying just because a numerical minority are the best Twitter's handles and the best Instagram and the best Facebook. That is not what New Yorkers are saying to me. When I speak to these mothers and say I want to put a plainclothes anti-gun unit in place, they're saying, what took you so long? And so we are ignoring the voices of those who are calling for my style of policing. And tell me something. Why did I get elected? Why did I get elected? It was obvious what I was saying. I ran on a clear law enforcement platform. I was clear. I didn't hide anything. I said I'm bringing back a plainclothes anti-gun unit. I said I was going to make sure that police officers was going after gangs. I was very clear because I said to New Yorkers, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. If I'm not the type of mayor you want, then you need to vote for those types that are saying disband police departments. They didn't say that. They said, we want what Eric Adams is saying. That was the #1 issue in the polls, crime. And so I'm responding to what I promised New Yorkers. And I have a police commissioner that understands how to do this correctly, that we have to have plainclothes units, wearing body cameras, making sure they're on, zeroing in on those gangs, going to those locations where we know gangs are really keeping communities prisoned. We're going to target them and say, you don't own the streets of the city of New York. The streets of the city of New York belongs to the innocent people that live in this city. I'm not surrendering my city to violence, and I'm going to use the right tools to do it. And that's why I have a partner here to make it happen. And we're going to get it right. And you know the joy of it, to all of you, you're going to benefit for it.
That's right.
You are tired of living in this violence. You are tired of what you're seeing in this city. You report it. You respond to the shootings. You respond to those little children that are shot. You respond to the gunshots in the Bronx when people are being shot at. You know I'm right. And I need for you to join me and start being the voice of not the numerical minority that's stating that we want to go back to the days of allowing police to stop any innocent person. Respond to the voices of those New Yorkers who ask me to do this. They are the majority. They have to be the majority because they elected me as the mayor.
So, Mr. Mayor, when and what kind of unit? How many
We're going to roll it
officers?
out, Gloria. We're going to roll it out. We're going to roll out. We're not going to do anything in secret. When the commissioner finalizes the final operation, we're going to do a nice presentation, let you see exactly how it is. You are going to be so impressed. We're going to roll it out, and we're going to do it right. One thing we have to be clear on, Eric Adams is not going to operate on any timeline but my timeline. I got to do it the way I believe it's done. I'm going to be held accountable. No one else is going to be held accountable. I am. We're going to do it right. We're going to show you how it's done. We're going to allow you to go out and do ride-alongs with us if you would like. So you can see how police officers with the right tools, the right mindset, the right skills, the right technology can do this the right way. We didn't have body cameras when Amadou Diallo was shot and killed. We didn't have body cameras when Zongo was shot and killed. We didn't have body cameras when Sean Bell was shot and killed. We have new technology. We have new ways of training to do the job. And so we're going to roll it out at the right time when our police commissioner is able to do so. I know this is hard for people to believe. This is only day 2.
Stephen? Mr. Mayor, nice to see you. To put a finer point on it, how will your anti-crime unit differ from the previous anti-crime unit that was very often criticized as being too aggressive and polluting the relationship between police and community?
We are going to roll it out. That's what I just went on a nice little few sentences, you know, and I made it very clear. We are going to roll it out, and you will see the difference, not only in the presentation, but the results. That's when you will be able to answer that question, because I've said this throughout the campaign, and no matter what I said, a different narrative was put in the paper. So I'm not going to do that again. It's obvious that some people don't believe, no matter what I say, they don't believe my 35 years of fighting against abuse policing. They don't believe the fact that I was arrested and beat by police officers. They don't believe that I had an organization called 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. They don't believe that I testified in federal court and the judge mentioned my name in the case. They don't believe how I stood up against police abuse. They don't believe any of that. So there's nothing I can say to you right now to convince you. So what I have to do, as Mother says, I have to show you. That's all I can do right now. I said this over and over again. I'm going to show you. That's my answer to your question.
Have any new tactics or strategies been developed at this point?
Yes, they have been, and we're going to roll them out.
Briella. You want to call me Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Just a question that may be for the commissioner in
Yes.
regards to the police-involved shooting yesterday. Any update on, I know he's leaving the hospital today, as I'm hearing, on whether or not that was a stray bullet or if he was the intended target?
I certainly don't want to go into the investigation now because it's ongoing, but the paramount thing is that the officer is doing very well and we expect him to make a full recovery, but that investigation continues. Okay.
Good.
I have a question about, you said that you're going to go to different boroughs, to talk about the anti-crime, so how do you plan on doing that?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the mask prevented me from hearing you.
I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
I said, since you said that you were going to different boroughs to talk about the anti-crime in every borough, how do you plan on doing that exactly over the next month?
So throughout the years and generals, but specifically throughout the campaign, I came up against some amazing men and women who have great ideas about how do we deal with violence on the ground level. A.T. Mitchell, he's Man Up in Brooklyn. Kay Bain, he's in Queensbridge Housing. You have other groups in other boroughs that we've partnered with. So we're going to be setting up their presentations with the commissioner, the deputy commissioner, and sit down and see their presentation on the ground crisis management team, other methods of stopping the flow of violence. How do we empower them with the resources? So we're going to allow them to give us a presentation. We're going to hear from them, and there would be a better synergy between these local grassroots organizations and the police department. And so we're going to take each borough one at a time, and then we're going to look at best practices that's coming from them, and we're going to have a unified practice with all of them. And I'm looking forward to that because there's some great ideas out there. Just a point of time, we have to be at the hospital for the walkout with the police officer at 4 o'clock. And so I know we're on a time schedule. If you want to ask some off-topic questions, I could probably do one or two before I get out the door.
I wanted to follow up on the intro 1867 bill. I know yesterday you had said that you had some concerns.
Yes.
I just wanted to know what kind of changed your ideas about it, because I know like back in September you supported it, so I just want to know what changed your mind on it.
Not concerns, plural. Concern, singular. I'm concerned about the part that states if you're in the city for 30 days, this is the bill that gives you the right to vote in local elections, for those who don't know. To give someone the authority to vote on a mayoral campaign, a controller campaign, a borough president campaign, a city council campaign, when they're only here for 30 days, that concerns me. I love the idea if you're here in this city for a period of time, you should have a right in local elections. That's so important. I advocated for that. But for a person that's here only 30 days to have a substantial determination on who's going to be your mayor, your controller, your public advocate, that's concerned me, and that's what I'm looking at. That is my only concern with the bill.
Gloria?
Mr. Mayor, I want to get some clarity on something you said this morning regarding testing for kids before they return to schools. You said that the governor has not decided to put that policy into place. But don't you have a say over what happens here in the local schools? And are you considering both a testing requirement as well as a vaccination mandate for schools?
I wish I did have that authority, and there's a way to do it. Because I was a former state senator, you could take it out of the state, and you could say that if you are in a city with 1 million plus people, then you're able to carry out a particular action. I would love that authority. Now, I think testing should be mandatory. It's so important. It would give us a lot of power to determine who's exposed. A mandatory vaccination, I think we should scale up to that. I don't think we're at that point now where it needs to be mandatory, but I would love to have mandatory testing right now, because I think we could really identify the cluster areas. We can get the resources where we need. We have 1 million plus test kits now. It would be a great help if we can do that, and we don't have the authority to do so.
Control does not allow you to do that?
No, I wish it did. I wish it did. And I think that it will help us with our deployment that we want to do on Monday. I'm hoping that somehow we can get the authority to do so, because we have to shift and pivot with this virus. And not having that authority, it makes it challenging for me. If I'm able to have the authority to do mandatory testing, to do mandatory vaccines, if we reach that dangerous point, my concern is not this variant. This is a dangerous variant, and we must be conscious of it. But my concern is a variant that, if it comes to the city, that spreads as fast as this variant, and it is as lethal as what we saw some of the other variants were. So we have to get this variant under control, and we must get it under control. But my real fear that keeps me up at night is to have one that is as lethal as some of the earlier versions of it.
Carol, you want
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
what can you say to parents, tomorrow's the first day of school resuming, to put them at ease about the safety of the schools in terms of COVID and the safety of schools in terms of violence? What do you say to parents?
That's a combination, and there's two different approaches. You know, first, let's deal with the COVID issue. We have to have facts, not fear. The safest place for children, based on the data, is inside a school building. That's the safest place for a child. Not only is it safe for a child with those who are exposed to COVID, because we're learning that if you're exposed to COVID in a classroom, it doesn't mean the entire classroom is exposed. So we're going to have testing, take-home kits for children. But the safest place for COVID is in a school building. But it's also safe for the child with their emotional stability. I mean, the number of suicide attempts that happened with children during the peak of COVID was just unbelievable. The socialization, those who said, well, let's just do remote learning. Hey, that's fine when you have a nice computer at your home. But what about those children that are living in temporary housing and those communities where you don't have access to broadband? I have to make sure that all children are in a safe space. So it's safe for those who, for the exposure to COVID is safe there. It's safe for socialization. It's safe for their mental health. And then you have some children who don't have those meals, that breakfast and that lunch. So it's better for us to put our children in a safe environment where we can make sure they're wearing their mask. Because if a child is home from school, don't think they're staying inside. Those children are now going to be out further being exposed to COVID, and they're not going to be wearing a mask. So we have a controlled environment where we can keep our children safe. All the experts are saying the same thing. The safest place is for children to be in school. And that's what I would say to parents. I would say to the parents, as a parent, I want my child to be in a safe space. And then we need to make sure you close down schools prematurely. What are you going to do with those parents that can't take off from their job? We're going to create a spiraling impact that's going to impact us. Public safety aspect of it, on the campaign trail, many people were talking about removing school safety officers from the NYPD. I didn't vacillate. I didn't hesitate. I was very clear and I was very simple. No. It's not happening. You want to change uniform and put them on white polo shirts and khakis? You want to give them a softer look? I'm all with that. You want to give them skills on more conflict resolution, how to deal with it? I'm all with that. But I'm not going to have my children in a school environment where you see 13-year-olds being stabbed in a library, where you see gang behavior, not only in the school, but outside the schools. That is not happening. We're going to have the commissioner have a school safety unit, well-trained people that are going to do the job correctly. I am not doing that. My children are going to be safe in school.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you referred to Man Up and the Queensbridge group, the K-Baines group. And these and other groups have gotten a lot of support from the city over the last few years to do violence interruption. And this tactic seems to be is being implemented in the same neighborhoods that then saw large spikes in crime. I was wondering what you think about the violence interrupter model, which proponents claim is very successful, but I'm not sure the evidence is there. I was wondering what you and the commissioner think about it.
I like that. That's a great question. And we need to, there's a couple of things we need to do, and I'm glad you asked that question. First, I want to start from the top. How many lives did they save? We may look at violence as going up in this community, but how far would it have gone up if we didn't have those organizations? So it's sort of difficult to really judge the success of someone that is on the ground preventing people from committing crimes. We often look at the crime that took place, but how many times did they prevent someone from committing a crime by placing them on a pathway to employment or education? I believe they're doing that. But second, I want to standardize the entire operation. We need to professionalize it to the manner of making sure everyone is receiving the same training. We can't have different groups doing different training. We need to look at the best practices of some of the people I'm talking about, like Kay Bain. Kay Bain is in Queensbridge. No homicides. That's real. You know, A.T. Mitchell and what he's doing in hotspots in Brooklyn with Man Up. So there are pockets where they've seemed to have figured it out. We need to look at their presentation, allow the police commissioner to see how do we intertwine what they're doing with our overall public safety strategy. And so I believe they're doing an amazing job. I've been on patrol with them. I've moved around with them. I see how they engage with people. I think it's a real plus for our city to have these men and women on the ground doing the job.
Final question, Steve? Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
back on schools, if you don't mind.
No problem.
What's your message to teachers, school staff, parents who say, you know, we're seeing positivity rates in the 20s, 30s in some neighborhoods. The baseline level of testing, the surveillance testing is not up to par to what it should be, and schools are essentially reopening tomorrow to inevitable spread. What do you say to parents and that community that says this new strategy of test to stay, test to return just isn't good enough, and we're going to see spread in schools when they open?
Well, you and I both know we've been dealing with this COVID on the ground for a couple of years now. There isn't one thing you can do that's going to have a universal approval, because this is emotional. We're talking about children. And so if we were to close the school, there's going to be a large body of people that's going to say, why are you doing that? If we were to keep the schools open, there's going to be a body of people saying, why are you keeping them open? If we do mandatory testing, why are you testing my child? This is emotional. We have it. And so calmness brings confidence. I'm saying to the parents and New Yorkers, see ourselves out of this crisis. Don't just wallow in this crisis. I've been through so many crises in my life. And I've learned, don't stay in the crisis and wallow in it. We're going to get through this. We've gone through so many crises in our lifetime, from 9/11 to the Great Depression to all sorts of crises. We're going to get through this, New York. And I'm not going to be part of the body of people that's going to just look at what are the negative sides. I'm looking at the positive side. We're wearing masks now. We're doing social distancing. We're washing our hands. We're getting vaccinated. We need to tell those parents, it's time to take your child to go get vaccinated. It's time for you to be vaccinated. It's time to get the booster shots. So there's so much more we can do. We can be, instead of feeling powerless, we can be empowered. If we triple this number of children who are being vaccinated in school, we can defy this and beat this problem. So our message must be, let's use the tools we have. This is not 1920, where we had to watch large number of people to pass. America and the globe has been successful. We created a vaccine. I mean, that vaccine idea stopped polio, stopped mumps, stopped measles. So all I'm saying is, let's look past the crises. Let's see how resilient we are as a city. I've just been through enough crises that I know we're resilient. And I'm going to tell my city, put your children in school. If it reaches the point that children should not be in school, we will make the proper call. We're not at that point right now. The safest place for a child is in school. Thank you.